I, Claudius is a historical novel written by English writer Robert Graves, published in 1934. Written in the first person, it tells the history of the early years of the Roman Empire from Emperor Claudius's point of view. I, Jedi, on the other hand, is a Star Wars novel written by American writer Michael A. Stackpole, published in 1998. Written in the first person, it tells the story of Luke Skywalker's inaugural Jedi class during the Jedi Academy trilogy, told from the point of view of Corran Horn. Like with some of the later Bantam releases, I couldn't find any data, though, that I, Jedi made the New York Times bestseller list for any of the weeks after its release. So what I remember from I, Jedi was basically that it was retconning Kevin J. Anderson's Jedi Academy trilogy. In rereading the Rogue Squadron books, I initially found Corran extremely obnoxious, started to warm up to him, but I did find in my reread that he's starting to just wear on my nerves a little here, and I don't think that the first-person narration really helps on that front. So, a brief summary. After Corran Horn's wife, Mirax Tarek, is captured during a covert mission to uncover the base of the Invid pirate group, Corran vows to take any means necessary to rescue her. So he joins the Jedi Academy on Yavin 4, only to become dissatisfied with Luke Skywalker's teaching methods. So using his Corellian undercover training, he infiltrates the pirate group, but at the risk of losing himself. So I, Jedi was revolutionary in the sense that it was the first Star Wars book to be written from first-person point of view. Some of the short stories that we've encountered thus far were also first-person POV, but this was the first full-length novel, and not just any novel, a hardcover release. We wouldn't really see any other first-person novel attempts until Kevin Hearn's Heir to the Jedi in 2014. Stackpole said in an interview that writing in the first person, writing in Corran's head, he found it very easy to write, and I think he said it took him something like only a month to write the whole book. So clearly Stackpole wanted to return to Corran, enjoyed writing about Corran, and Bantam and Lucasfilm thought he was worth returning to. But you sort of run a risk with I, Jedi in that the main character, the viewpoint character, is not someone from the movies. He's someone that was created in a paperback release. And not just that, but it relies on the reader's knowledge of events from Kevin J. Anderson's Jedi Academy trilogy. So going into it, I think it would be difficult for a beginner to the Star Wars universe to pick this up and really know what's going on and be able to follow along. It's almost as though with I, Jedi, Bantam was sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudging the reader, like, you've stuck in here for all these Star Wars books thus far, well, this one's for you, buddy, this one's for you. So we have Corran's first-person narration, which means that we're in Corran's head a lot. There's a lot of introspection going on, which is fine, except for the fact that the more time I spend in Corran's head, the more he starts to irritate me. Corran has faults. He's willing to admit them. But I feel like Corran's faults sometimes almost outweigh his good parts. And in particular, I'm talking about his ego and his arrogance. Corran has a lot of thoughts on Jedi training and how the Jedi Academy is being run. And honestly, I agree with a lot of his thoughts, which just makes it even harder to accept the fact that I just find him insufferable at times. His wife goes missing at the beginning of the book, literally fridged, but fortunately, unlike most women that are fridged in fiction, she's not dead. She's just out of it for the whole book. And he wants to rescue her, has no idea how to rescue her, ends up taking this plot-dictated detour into Luke's Jedi Academy, which offers Stackpole the chance to explain how Corran develops his force skill, but also feels like a lot of retread. Anderson specifically did not name all the pupils of Luke's first class. We only really get the names of 6, and we're told that there's a dozen. So it's easy for Stackpole to slot Corran in there. But unfortunately, that also means that since Corran wasn't present at a lot of these huge events in Dark Apprentice and Champions of the Force, Stackpole sort of has to have him on a side quest. And in this case, it's Corran investigating who's behind all the spooky goings-on at the Jedi Academy. He pretty quickly learns that it's Exar Kun. He can't get Luke to take him seriously, and it almost feels as though the final confrontation against Kun is solely Corran's doing. Before all the other students face him in the Great Hall, Corran goes and he wants to blow up Exar Kun's pyramid/ziggurat. He, of course, makes a fatal error, which is he forgets that Kun can affect material objects. He was able to destroy the holocron. So he sets all these explosives, then he's taunting Exar Kun, and then Exar Kun just destroys everything and in turn taunts Corran. Corran at various points in the story gets like really messed up, and this is, I think, the case where he gets the most messed up because Exar Kun's just like slamming him against stuff and his bones are breaking. But it still feels like Corran engaging with Exar Kun is what led to all the Jedi apprentices being able to destroy him with the power of light. And I'm not sure how I feel about that because it just makes Corran out to be more essential than I feel he is. So if Corran spends the first half of the book trying to learn his heritage, essentially be just like his biological grandfather, the second half of the book sees him taking the opposite extreme, where he's just using only his Corsec knowledge. He doesn't really want to use the Force because Admiral Tavira's people will be able to know what he's up to. So in a way, iJedi is Corran having to reconcile these two sides of himself. The Corsec side that comes from his adopted grandfather, Horn, and the Jedi side of him that comes from his other grandfather, Nejah Halcyon. And Corran's able to unite the two, but sort of in a way that also makes me squint at him. Because Corran, during his Jedi training, has both great potential but also a lot of great limitations holding him back. He can't use telekinesis like a lot of the apprentices, but he can create illusions for people, and like Vader in The Empire Strikes Back, he can absorb energy and redirect it. In the case of absorbing energy, it comes at what I would argue is a great cost to him, which is basically, it's really painful. It's hard to do. You're absorbing blaster bolts and it just doesn't feel good. But with the illusions, I feel like there's not sufficient limitations for him, and especially as we get further in the book and when he starts doing his Jedi vigilante thing with the pirates, the illusions he's able to do just seem beyond what his training would lead me to believe he's capable of. He's just like the best at illusions, and he makes all these illusions and everyone sees them, and in the final pivotal moment in the end, he even makes Tavira see an illusion that makes her run away. And I'm like, Corran, it's too much. Corran also has a lot of introspection going on, and some of it makes me really also squint at him, which is that he finds Admiral Tavira very attractive to the point that he seriously considers sleeping with her because it would help him find his wife. Fortunately talks himself out of that, but it's like, buddy, no, don't do that. So many of his encounters with women in these books are Corran finds them attractive, but he'd never sleep with them. Or Corran finds them attractive, and maybe he should sleep with them because they would help him. And no, he won't, because his wife is very attractive. And it's just like, seriously, I don't want to call Corran a Gary Stu. the male equivalent of Mary Sue, but there's bits like that that just sort of tip him over the edge into being too much. And while Corran takes up an awful lot of this book, and I could probably talk about Corran indefinitely, there are other characters in this book as well that I wanted to touch on at least briefly. We see Wedge. Corran seems to imply that Wedge's relationship with Qui Shush is because Wedge is going through like a quarter/midlife crisis. And that's also why he's more land-bound in being a general right now, because he doesn't know what he wants with his life. Which I did too wonder why Wedge was a general and why he was doing no naval or starfighter things in the Jedi Academy trilogy, but it just irks me a little that Corran so completely puts Wedge in a box like that. We also see Luke Skywalker, who's clearly still struggling after the events of Dark Empire, but maybe to an unbelievable extent. I had a lot of issues with Luke in the Jedi Academy trilogy, just basically that, what makes you think you can teach people, Luke? But having Corran really dig in on Luke and Luke just be so passive for a lot of the book also doesn't sit well with me. Luke's just a really bad teacher. He's really unobservant, and he just lets Corran lay in on him. Which I'm not saying Luke needed to snap back at him, but I would have liked a little more interplay between the two rather than just Corran lecturing Luke about all the ways he's failed. We also meet Mara Jade again. She sort of instantly becomes friends with Corran Horn. We also get a little bit of retconning of her relationship with Lando, with Stackpole setting up that is pretty much just a business thing and that it's all on Lando's side and she's not interested, which is also the impression I got from the Jedi Academy trilogy, but it's a retcon that we'll see continued into Vision of the Future by Timothy Zahn as well. I do like seeing a little bit of Luke and Mara's relationship, though, specifically that when Mara comes back to hand Corran some information, and Luke's sort of upset about it, like Mara was here, and she just left and she wouldn't even talk to me. We also meet another character who will have greater prominence in Vision of the Future, and that is Elegos, the Kamasi. In the second half, when Corran's pretending to be a pirate, sort of starting to lose himself within that pirate morality code, he stops another one of the pirates from stealing and hurting, possibly killing, a group of Kamasi. Corran says that he's taking that one as his manservant, and Elegos goes along with it because it turns out that Elegos' uncle was a Jedi who knew Corran's grandfather. I like Elegos, and I like this concept of almost tribal genetic memories that the Kamasi have. Basically that they can pass very vivid memories down to other members of their family, and that they can also pass them on to people with the Force, Jedi as well, which is basically the thing that diffuses the conflict with the Jensari, that Elegos is able to show them the memory that his uncle had of that confrontation. Then we have all the other Jedi that Luke is training. Specifically, Stackpole slots Brachus into the initial class. Brachus originally appeared in the Young Jedi Knights books and then appeared in Christine Catherine Rouche's The New Rebellion. So it's nice to see that Brachus was there too. Corran doesn't really connect with any of the other Jedi students though, like he does with Mara Jade. Doesn't really have a connection to the other ones and just really doesn't like Gantoris and then Kype. And then we have our baddies. Obviously, Exar Kun is the bad guy for the first half of the book. I do like getting to see a little bit more of Kun in his interactions with Corran, how he tries to tempt him, how he just really breaks him down. And it's also nice seeing how Mara Jade's able to come in and just sort of completely squash that. Exar Kun really affects Corran. But maybe because Mara has lived through the Emperor and Darth Vader and Thrawn, she just can't put up with that and just squashes him. And then we have Admiral Leonia Tavira. She originally appeared in the Rogue Squadron comics, specifically the arc involving Plur, but she shows up here again. And this is where I have to say that I don't quite understand what it is with Stackpole sexualizing his female villains. You don't get any hint of that from any of the male baddies, but we had it with Asard and we really have it here with Tavira, that more so than any other aspect of her character is just the fact that she's a hugely attractive lady and that people find her attractive and she wants to sleep with Corran, to the point that it doesn't make her feel like a threat to me because she's just this like sex pot. Which is another thing. We literally don't see Mirax until the very end. She's gone before the book even opens. And Corran seems to spend an awful lot of time lollygagging around doing everything but rescuing his wife. She's in hibernation, some sort of Jedi trance, so it's not like she's really suffering. But he spends an awful lot of time at the Jedi Academy learning his skills. Then he spends an awful lot of time getting undercover with the pirates. And it seems like he's not coming even close to rescuing Mirax until Luke just miraculously shows up with Earl near the end. If it weren't for Luke, he wouldn't have been able to capture the Jensari, he wouldn't have been able to question the Jensari, and he would have never known what planet Mirax was on. So it just felt like an almost full-length wild goose chase again. That Stackpole wanted Corran to go to the Jedi Academy, and he wanted Corran to do an undercover mission, and he needed a reason why. And then she's captured, and then she's like the lost Lenore, to reference the Poe poem, that's behind everything he does. But honestly, I think he could have done it faster and more quickly. There's a lot of fan-on around the development behind iJedi, specifically that Stackpole and, to a lesser degree, Zahn didn't like at all what Kevin J. Anderson had done with the Jedi Academy trilogy and just set out to completely retcon everything. Stackpole said in a blog post that that's not the case and that he just wanted to tell a story from a different point of view, which I do buy, but I also suspect that there was, to a certain extent, the desire to fix some stuff that maybe he thought was a little sloppy. I was no fan of the Jedi Academy trilogy, but I feel a little strange about this desire to retcon some of the aspects of it. Like, yeah, I didn't agree with a lot of what happened in it. I didn't feel like if I were plotting out, that's what would have happened. But it also feels a bit rich to me to then turn around and rewrite aspects of it. If I were to boil down my biggest issue with iJedi, it's just that even when I agree with Corran, even when I think that, yeah, his viewpoint is correct, he's just insufferable. And it just becomes too much for me in the end that even though he struggles and he has issues, he 90% right in the end. And I'm just like, get out of here, Corran. I'm done with you. So in short, iJedi is definitely different. It's first person, you're in Corran Horn's head the whole time, like it or not. We get to see a different side of the Jedi Academy and then a more traditional undercover plotline. I guess just where it falls apart for me is that it doesn't really stand alone. You definitely have to have read, at the very least, the Jedi Academy trilogy, and it also helps to be familiar with Corran and to have read the Rogue Squadron books as well. But also, just that Corran, in the end, is too powerful and too right, and he's just a tad bit obnoxious about it. So next time, I will be reading the first book in the Bounty Hunter Wars trilogy by K.W. Jeter, The Mandalorian Armor.